Welcome, friends. We are live. As if I didn't look weird enough. Tonight I look weird. A magic man. How is everybody? Tonight we get heavy. We go long, we go deep. Probably will talk about this book more than once. I loved it. John Dee and the Empire of Angels, Enochian. I don't know if I pronounced that right. That's the angelic language devised by Dr. John Dee. And the occult roots of the modern world. It quotes heavily from Yeats, Francis Yeats, who was an expert on the Rosicrucian movement and Magick in the Victorian age. I already lost my freaking first viewer. This is an awesome book. And it's good. Also, it's pretty pricey even on Kindle, but it's worth it. So you might want to get it that way. It's like $23.95 on Amazon Kindle reader. I don't know if it's on any other readers. Jason Louv is the author. He's really knowledgeable on the occult. He has some YouTubes. You might want to check him out. And he went all out with this huge tome. This is a huge book. Came out on April 17th of 2018. And it's about Dr. D. 007, if you don't know. He is James Bond in a sense. Seems to be a tribute. I think I mentioned it on here before that probably during the Olympic Games that were held in London, Daniel Craig, the modern representation of Dr. D, appointed the Queen, or he escorted the Queen into the games. Dr. D and his associate Sir Francis Wallishingham, if I'm pronouncing his name right, they are definitely more than less considered the fathers of the mighty MI6 British intelligence. Anybody out there, join me. What is it? Nice weather now, so everybody went outside. Have you beaten the COVID? So you're out there. And they were under the mighty Queen Elizabeth. And has some debates on this. It goes into the mysterious fight between the massive Spanish Armada and the British. And a massive storm came and swept the Spanish fleet to the bottom of the ocean, and the British didn't even have to do that much fighting. It's depicted in that movie with the very attractive woman who's the elf queen or whatever from Lord of the Rings. I always forget her name. And I think Clive Owen plays Drake, or Francis Drake. It was implied that they had some romance or something. I don't know if they really did. Anyway, D, the original Aleister Crowley, had a big, kind of like a mansion in front of Mortlake. I think Crowley fancied D, one of the manifestations that he reincarnated in, as well as Alpheus Levi. Forgive me, I'm a sloppy occultist, but I somewhat know my stuff. The angel language Enochian, I believe, is developed by D himself. If you look at some of his magical stuff that he did, it just looks for real. I mean, the charts and his monad. If you're familiar with magic stuff and you fool around with it, then you know about sigils. And some people like to stare into them and get freaked out, or use it for their rituals and strange things, or draw them in like graffiti on the streets of New Orleans, or behind signs with magic markers in New York, and put them on stickers and blah, blah, blah. but his was much more serious. And his monad, I actually did a film of it here, and I made it eerie. Maybe it's not good. I'm dabbling in the occult, not giving it any respect. I am the sloppy occultist. Sorry. Forgive me, but let me continue with my relatively good book review of John Dee, Empire of Angels. Looking at it in the context of this book, you know, it could be heavily disputed, but you tend to start to think that Dee was the real brains behind the formation of the British Empire, and then he had kind of a falling out for different heretical activities, and at different times dabbling in astrology was illegal. And then there was the absolute bloody wars, like between the Catholics. We here in the United States have no conception of how bad the major religious wars were over there. Now we're getting a taste, since everybody hates each other in the United States intensely. More and more people on each other's case, ratting each other out. Are you with this? Are you with that? So we're getting a taste of what the battles between the Roman Catholics and the Protestants were in England, as it was, remember the 5th of November, the Guy Fawkes affair was indeed probably instrumental in heating up, or undeniably instrumental in heating up, the religious wars there. Dee was at the heart of it in the 1500s. The fairy queen was Queen Elizabeth. What a figure. Excuse me. Hello? I'm live. Are you watching? Are you on? Is this carnivore? Hello? Can you hear me?
That you're live.
Oh, yeah, I'm on right now. Oh, crap. Our phone call is on. We are on. I'm on. Can I call you Rebel? What's the name you go by in the world? What's your handle out there? I'm telling the audience that I am on with the man. Brave. I'm on the line with Brave. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're talking, I'm doing a book review of John Dee and the Empire of Angels, Enochian Magick, and the Cult Roots of the Modern World. Oh, nice. All right. Oh, well, should I continue and then call you in a bit? Or are you probably tied up? Oh, can you hear? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Should I continue my vlogcast and then get back to you, my brother?
Yes, that'd be great, because I think the calls might be interfering a little bit and not coming through.
All right, jump into YouTube.
I'll be watching your channel right now.
All right, see you on, brother. Ciao, ciao, Brave. That was Brave, ladies and gentlemen. Also looking into Dee. So where were we? Yeah, so this was definitely, he was definitely the inspiration. You know, asking the queen to view herself as the fairy queen. Mystical. Who's going to mess with the fairy queen? She's got superpowers. And there was a poem. I think it was Edward Spencer who came up with it. Let me see if I can check on that. Who did that poem? Well, it's an opera by Henry Purcell, but it's a poem. Yeah, Edwin Spencer. The Fairy Queen. English epic poem by Edward Spencer, first published in 1590, then again in 1596. An allegorical work can be read on several levels of allegory, including as praise or lady criticism for Queen Elizabeth. So they envisioned an empire. This book does contain an excellent overview of Dee's scientific achievements and his contacting of the angels. He was a major influence on Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, and later on Anton LaVey, the leader of the satanic movement out of San Francisco. Jason Louv, I can never pronounce his name. He also has another book, Hyperworlds, Underworlds, and he edited the Psychic spelled Psychik Bible. Really weird. So he's familiar with the famous or underground occultist Genesis P. Orderidge. And if I remember correct, they were an influence. I've heard, it could be because if you believe, you're talking directly to, nice. Oh, let me get to the next comment too. Because you're talking directly to these powerful entities if you believe in it. And like I said, the monad that I have on here, maybe I should have put it up, maybe I shouldn't have. They're just, let's say, okay, if number one, psychologically powerful, and number two, if you believe in Western magic and occult tradition, then the Goetic magic, King Solomon, if you will, and Dee's system are, very, shall we say, proven and sophisticated. So that might be why it has that reputation. If you sometimes listen to big occult channels on here, the people who mess around with this stuff, I've heard comments that they've had quote unquote bad experiences with the Goetic magic. But then again, you're dealing with people who are like, I talked to Lucifer and he helped me out, and so they're into strange stuff already. Let me just briefly sidetrack into an interesting comment that I went through before. I just wanted to verify something. Kind of a pop thing here. So yeah, Genesis P. Orridge influenced acid house music. And had connections in London. Throbbing Gristle, that was his new band. Oh. I don't know. I thought they had connection to those big bands, New Order or whatever. Political correctness. Yeah. Towards the end of. Jason is a modern guy, so at least what I get out of his stuff. So it has, it has the usual sophisticated, maybe politically correct. I've seen some of his YouTubes, and so he's very disciplined with his magic stuff. You can tell, ultra culture. And that's why I thought those bands, New Order and Joy Division, in that era, strike me as very sophisticated. Out of England, I'm going way off topic, but that very famous occult woman, she worked in the music video. God, I can't remember. The very scary lady, very popular in Hollywood. Why does her name escapes me? Gosh, Maria Abramovich. The lead singer was very good. He took his own life. Curtis. At the age of 23. And in any case, what does this have to do with John Dee? Almost nothing, but almost everything. So yeah, in the beginning, and then I just was looking at some Amazon reviews. There was somebody who was upset that he did a big criticism of Christian Zionism and so forth. There was and really was some evidence presented in this book, and I've heard it before, that Dee was pursuing some apocalyptic stuff. End the world, as Jack Parsons was. Which is scary. In other words, these very learned men, all involved in this esoteric stuff, occult stuff, always seem to go in that. And there's a big chapter in that book. I don't know if you remember that OE. Orphic Egg. Cool name. But he gives his opinions about that. And yeah, there's somebody, Kindle customer, unnamed, on Amazon review, quote unquote, that was the most divisive introduction I've ever read. I wanted a good read about occult history and John Dee, and I start off reading a rant about how a Christian Zionist, aka Republicans, are the cause of anything bad. Yeah. Another interesting aspect of this is it's interesting that Dee was attempting to talk to the angels, and that he was an empire builder, but then he was interested in this bringing about the apocalypse, as Jack Parsons was, by the way. Some of these reviews are funny. A guy comes, he goes, I got a damaged book. I mean, I don't know. You're doing a review book of the material. I'm sorry you got a damaged book. Okay. Anyway, I highly recommend it. Oh, yeah. The entity that I think what you're talking about, the entity that you're talking about that Crowley trafficked with, if you believe that he was anything other than a hedonist, was Lamb. And Lamb looks you could say, looks like a gray. Kenneth Grant and others have said that, I don't know whether or not it's megalomania. They claim that the certain activities by the great beast, Crowley, increased UFO activity. And he commented on, and this makes a certain logical sense, that the Magick behind the atomic bomb testing at the Trinity site, Truth and Consequences, New Mexico, Ground Zero, what have you, stimulated the shades or otherwise entities from beyond or UFO activity. And I mean, that makes sense if there really is such a thing, which we're now getting more and more footage. The military is more and more admitting to contact. But when Crowley associates Parsons and gosh, I can't remember the Scientology guy, L. Ron Hubbard. They engage in a Babylon working out in the desert area too. But yeah, exactly what you're talking about. And the late James Shelby Downard talked about really weird things at the Trinity site. It's kind of funny. Adam Gorightly and author Adam Gorightly and some other guys have done a whole thing on Jumbo, which was this massive, absolutely massive metal object that for some reason they put it out in the desert when they were doing the testing, like this huge thing. Like even the atomic bomb couldn't blow the thing up just even from the force of it. And he speculated that they tested the bomb and probably collected the energy, and they were working on making I think I've talked about this, homunculus. Yeah. And then when they wanted to get rid of that Jumbo, he described that they really had a amazingly difficult time in blowing the thing up. An interesting comment that Jason Loev, if he comes across as Louvre, probably be pretty pissed at me. I can't say his name. Brings out is that, the majority of when you think about it, the majority of the people in the world, believe in angels. So they're in all the Abraham religions of Abraham. This book goes very extensively into, not exactly how you do his magic or anything about any charts or any explanation of the language Enochian. I believe I'm pronouncing it right. But it does go through how much trouble Dee got into, how he got his start. His dad was involved in some crimes, and he had to kind of beat that in society, beat the rap for what happened. And the question that's been put forth was his scryer, was his psychic man, his scryer, Edward Kelly, who was at times accused of being disreputable, being a criminal. Was he for real? And was he putting on Dee? Was he bullshitting Dee? I believe Francis Bacon later on would be another occult master of England, a Merlin type. And Elizabeth herself was like a King Arthur type, and that's always when you create archetypes that strong, you're gonna have success. I mean, she was the Arthur, the brilliant queen, full of guts, and he was the super genius that you're not gonna lose. It's like Ronald Reagan created the ultimate father figure or grandfather figure of an anti-communism figure, and nobody, at least for a certain period of time, he was invincible in that. Just like Barack Obama was seen as a new fresh face and a hip African American guy, and that was pretty invincible for a while. And his wife was, an interesting and then it comes and goes. But he had plans to unify the monotheistic religions, and through that's part of his strategy to dominate the world. He had a lot of domination of the world thoughts. He was an extensive influence on Sir Francis Bacon, who would be another extremely influential occultist out of England. Some of his artworks are very disturbing, and still to this day they hold up in terms of weirdness. So the scrying sessions of Edward Kelly, were they baloney? That's funny that Dee would build up this amazing energy around this fairy queen thing and all this stuff, and have behind the scenes influence on the crown itself that can't be underestimated. And it would be funny that if he fell for a bullshitter like Edward Kelly. There's a very famous picture of Edward Kelly in a very old cemetery, and he's practicing necromancy. Which, it's a creepy picture. It's very, very famous. There's like he's talking to a man, a man who's a skull is talking right to him. So this book sends through the idea that Dee really invented the idea of the British Empire. From behind the scenes. Could it be? The British have always been great at selling the monarchy and selling a story about how they achieve great victories and vanquish all kind of enemies. And they really are one of the best at that. Just a very Sherlock Holmes thing, the Arthurian, the King Arthur legends. And they probably sprang forth through this was building it up, building the reputation. I mean, still, Great Britain doesn't have any of the power that they used to, but they managed to still play a role in the center stage of the world. They still are included, even though they're second fiddle to America now, which Dee allegedly envisioned America as a kind of a Atlantis. So if, will I go so far that he prophesized that as a building thing? I think so. I don't think I'll put in the liner notes that, oh yeah. Yeah. Right. Edward Kelly, he did. I think he did. You're right. He goes, oh, I think we should swap wives. Yeah. Right. So that gives us an idea of, for better or for worse, going back to my weird shades, he did say that. And they had to get out of Dodge. Dee and Kelly had to get out of England when the heat got pretty strong. They went over to the continent. They did spend time on my beloved Krakow, Poland. And when I was in Prague, they point to a big tower, and Edward Kelly stayed there. And according to Francis Yates, they met with the very famous Rabbi Judah Low, who was an absolute expert in magic himself, and he created the golem to protect the Jewish people. I don't know how long they met, and I what's funny, when I was in Prague, they said they didn't refer to D, they just referred to Edward Kelly, that he had a tower over there, which is weird. Dr. John D. Yeah, that's funny. I remember they write this with the also D's legendary library. He had probably the greatest library of England, and he got into debt sometimes. He would be seeking out the secret books. And I don't know where he was there, but he definitely did spend time in Krakow, the ancient little Polish city. Back to the fleet victory, he was now, according to Jason, Dr. D had been ousted out of the British establishment before that tremendous naval victory. So they said that really wasn't him. So kind of when you watch the movie, you wondered, did he was he advanced and enough, and he knew weather patterns, and they suckered the Spanish, or did he call the power of the angels, perhaps the demons, and did they blast the shit out of the Spanish ships? I don't know. He was also got in accused of different treasonous activity and casting astrological horoscopes of the Queen. He appeared before a Star Chamber and exonerated himself. But then he was turned over to a Catholic bishop for a religious examination. He was, of course, as you might expect, a super secret man, and that always kind of put the spotlight on him. He was secret. In the modern world, offshoots like Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn and different related things were definitely influenced by Dr. D. And almost certainly Giordano Bruno and other Renaissance occultists, no doubt, were familiar with him. So he was the real Merlin. I think he did influence Shakespeare. Some of his books are actually for display, or were at display at the Yale University Library. His most famous monad, I did a glyph. He explained in his Monus Hieroglyphica, an exhaustive Kabbalistic interpretation of the glyph of his own design. I've heard some people say that the Kabbalah is mostly the work of Isaac Luria, but that would be into question because D apparently had Kabbalistic knowledge and has studied it. So he expounds on the meaning of his glyph or monad in the Monas Hieroglyphica. He was a Rosicrucian. Some people even call him the father of Freemasonry. I don't know how they officially feel about that. I could buy that. That's interesting. A guy in the OTO. Yeah, I briefly met a guy in OTO, but I lost track from that contacting me from this gabbing on this channel. So, yeah. They're not up my way, but I've seen some of their headquarters out in San Francisco. Love is the law. Yes, he was a friend of a popular but poor Polish nobleman, Albert Lasky. That's him. And then he spent time in Prague and Bohemia. He also was a big fan of increasing the Elizabethan realm and its power. Supported establishment of colonies. So he had a vision. And of course, he was a fan of Hermes Trigentis. Hermeticism, a huge influence on all the groups. Any questions? Edward Kelly was extremely strange. He had no ears. Which was bizarre. Was he a con man? Con man. That was a big speculation. Edward Talbot was his other name. And that he is best known for working with D. He professed the ability to summon spirits or angels, and both of them had a relationship with significant people of power in Europe. So he went to D onto the continent. The angelic language, or Enochian. So he had to have had a hand in it. And there's questions to whether or not he fabricated a lot of his stuff. Necromancy, yeah. I don't know if they have evoking a spirit. So he's in this church graveyard and he's drawing his magical circle and the spirit comes up. Oh, I thought the spirit had a skull. Well, they were definitely spooky. Oh, I didn't know that Manly P. Hall fell for some con stuff. I did not know that. I've always wondered how someone is able to take advantage of especially higher echelons of power. Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk when you're an advisor like D or Kelly to piss off the powerful people. I mean, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it's one way to make big cash. D, I think that was Oh, hold on, guys. I'll be back later. Hello, friend.